Hello everyone, Earl Henderson in Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching. I have another Monday quarterback video for you. This video is not in the typical critical incident briefing format. The agency that it comes from does not appear to have created a informational video. This footage is just straight body cam footage. Some of it is slightly redacted, but it's just basically raw footage. There's no spokesperson explaining the events, no overhead aerial maps or anything like that showing locations, etc. The stuff you're kind of used to. There are some agencies from time to time who will do that. They won't make a presentation video. They'll just put the body cam footage out there. The body cam footage itself, I also could not find it on any governmental site. Typically, an agency will have a YouTube page they'll publish stuff to, or there will be a governmental website of some sort that is hosting the video. This is not the case. It appears to me that the footage that they've released, they just gave to the media, and it's within the different hands of media. There are some documents online from the district attorney's office and the police department. The police department does have a press release when the incident happened, and then there is a press release from the district attorney's office talking about this, but there's no associated video or anything like that. This body cam footage is 13 minutes long. I will play that and intermittently pause as it's going to explain what's going on so you have a better understanding of what's going on, and talk about things that I think that are being done right and or done wrong. After this body cam footage from the actual incident, I will then play the interview of the suspect that the detectives conducted at the hospital a day or two after this incident. That one's almost an hour long. So this is going to be a really long video. The first half of it will be the body cam footage from the incident, and then the second part will be the interview that the suspect gives. So, without further ado, well, hold on. Let me get into more of the synopsis. So, this is happening in Fort Lupton, Colorado. This is Weld County, Colorado. This is an incident that occurred in December of 2019. I have an article from 9 News that was published in February by Janet Orovitz. Following a nearly week-long trial, a Weld County jury convicted a man on 14 charges related to the shooting of a Fort Lupton police sergeant in late 2019. Matthew Cotter was convicted of shooting Sergeant Christopher Pelton during an incident on Ponderosa Place, December 2nd, 2019. Pelton was shot in the face, which shattered his jaw. He spent more than a week in the intensive care unit. Cotter was convicted Wednesday of more than a dozen charges, the Weld County District Attorney's Office said. They included 4 counts of attempted first-degree murder, 1 count attempted first-degree assault, 1 count of attempted assault, 6 counts crime of violence, 1 count reckless endangerment, 1 count prohibited use of a weapon. Cotter faces between 48 and 96 years in prison, the DA's office said. He will be sentenced May 12. Officers initially responded to a home on Ponderosa Place around 9 p.m. on December 2nd after a resident called the police and said that her daughter's ex-boyfriend, identified as Cotter, had threatened to harm her and then kill himself, an affidavit from the Greeley Police Department says. Officers checked the area but did not find Cotter or his vehicle, which was described as a gray Ford Focus. About 2 hours later, there was another call for help from that same home. This time, the caller said that Cotter was parked outside the home with his lights turned off and sent a text message to his ex-girlfriend saying it's too late. The caller then told dispatch that Cotter was armed. Officers arrived at the home but did not see Cotter. They requested that dispatch have someone from inside the home come and meet them. A short time later, an officer announced over the radio that shots had been fired and that an officer and Cotter had been shot. Both were transported to the hospital. The day after the shooting, Cotter met with the detectives and agreed to talk with them after waiving his rights. Cotter told detectives he was at the home at 282 Ponderosa Place and heard police sirens approaching. He took a handgun from the car, loaded a round in the chamber, and then ran and hid behind a fence. He told detectives, according to the affidavit, that he saw officers arrive through a slat in the fence and then admitted shooting 3 or 4 rounds from his handgun at an officer. I shot, he dropped. They shot, I dropped, Cotter said, according to the document. Cotter added that he caught the officer off guard, according to the affidavit, and then detailed how he focused on his gun sights when aiming at the officer from a position on the ground. After firing the shots, Cotter said he heard other officers approaching and attempted to run away, but was immediately shot and taken into custody. He was initially charged with 2 counts of attempt to commit first-degree murder, 3 counts of first-degree assault, 1 count of attempt to commit first-degree assault. All right. So that was the article kind of detailing some of what was going on there. And without further ado, we'll go into the body cam footage. All right. So they are going to a call, and they know the person's armed. This guy has his rifle out while he's still driving down the road. Love it. One of my biggest gripes in a lot of these videos is officers will respond to a call involving gunplay, and they will neglect to even get their rifles out. And of course, I advocate that if you're going to a call like that, you need to have your rifle out for that call. And I offer opinions and advice that if the gun is in the cab of the vehicle, then you need to go ahead and get it dismounted from the mount and get it ready so that when you stop your vehicle, you're able to quickly dismount from the vehicle with rifle in hand, and you don't have to mess with finding the little hidden button to disengage the magnetic lock on the mount and then get the rifle out. So this officer, this sergeant, I want to say his name is Sagner. I was looking at the Greeley Tribune, and they're one of those news sites where you can only read one article, and then anything else you got to pay for. So I can't look at the articles anymore. But it did have a good piece of information from this guy on a couple things. But he's got his rifle. He's got it out. He hasn't got it charged yet, which he'll charge it when he gets out of the vehicle. But this is the appropriate way to do stuff. So if you're going to a call that involves gunplay, or it's a call where there's a person that has a weapon of some sort and is trying to cause physical harm to people, or it's a burglary call, home invasion call, those are times where you need to have a rifle ready to put into play. If your rifle's up in the cab and it's in some type of locking mount, then 2 options. 1, you can pull over to the side of the road and safely disengage the lock, get it out, charge it, and then have the sling around your neck, sort of like a 1-point configuration, and have the muzzle down in between your knees, pointing down at the floorboard. Probably even have the magazine of the rifle kind of hooked onto the seat in between your legs. That would keep the rifle pretty well out of the way, still allow you to steer the car and it wouldn't be that much of an issue. And then when you stop, you're able to get out of the vehicle and go with it. Second option is while you're driving, you can disengage the rifle from the mount and still charge it, put the sling around your neck, sort of like a 1-point configuration, muzzle between the legs, like I just mentioned earlier, and be able to dismount quickly with it. If you don't have your rifle in the cab and it's in the trunk or it's in the cargo hold of an SUV, or it's in the bed of a pickup truck and one of those nice little rollout safes, then the best option, I think, is to, while you're en route to the call, just pull off to the side of the road, get out, go to the rear, get that rifle out, any support gear that you may need with it, and get back into the cab of the vehicle, charge it, put sling around neck like a 1-point configuration, and muzzle between legs, etc., and then proceed to call. That way, when you get there, you're able to dismount from the vehicle and have a rifle ready to put into play if things start to suddenly and rapidly evolve. So good on this officer for getting this rifle ready. That rattling noise you hear, that is probably his lap mount. I can't talk. His laptop mount. So, a lot of vehicles have laptops in them, and the little mounts, they kind of are attached to the seat frame, and the vibrations and everything just cause these things to rattle. Sometimes when they start getting a little bit loose, they rattle a little bit more. You just got to tighten the knobs up. But that's what I think the rattling noise is, in case anyone's wondering.
I'll be on scene, deploying long gun.
So he had called out that he's on scene deploying long gun. It might be a policy for this agency for people to say if they're going to be getting their long gun out, to add that to, or tell dispatch about that. That way it can be added to the dispatch notes. And it might be something that, a supervisor above him needs to know about. So there are some agencies that have some goofy policies in place regarding their long guns. I don't think that these are good policies to have, because I think it will end up deterring officers from wanting to get their rifle out if they're having to notify a supervisor or having to write a report if they're even getting this thing out. These are oppressive policies, and they are dangerous policies. I, of course, do not wish anything bad to happen for officers, but unfortunately, it's just going to take an officer getting hurt before that. Well, it's going to take an officer getting hurt, and it's going to be taking an agency being sued over that dumbass policy that got them hurt before any kind of changes can occur. So a lot of administrators, they're out of touch with reality. They really are. There are some people, I don't even know how the hell they became a ranking officer. I really don't. It's beyond me. Some of the stupid shit that you hear that administrators come up with. So there are some policies that, or some agencies that have policies that if you get a long gun out, it has to be certain situations that are occurring before you can ever get that rifle out. And then they may have to require that an officer provide a report on why they took that long gun out and were walking around with it. If it's a shotgun, I've heard of some agencies having a policy that if you rack the pump on that shotgun and load around into the tube, a report has to be done. And of course, there's some that require that a supervisor be notified anytime a rifle comes out. if an officer is having to write a report because they're just pulling something out, then that is going to cause them to be less likely to want to pull that out because they don't want to do a bullshit report. There's some places that are forcing officers now to write a report if they pull their taser out of their holster and point it at someone. Not even shoot it. Just pull their taser out and point it at someone. There's some agencies that are requiring officers to do a report if they pull their gun out of their holster. What ends up happening when an officer has to write a damn report every time they pull their fucking gun out, even if they don't ever point it at someone? Well, then they're less likely to pull the damn thing out because they'll be bogged down with paperwork. Hell, there's some places you pull your gun out multiple times during a shift. Could you imagine having to do a report every damn time you pulled your gun out? You'd be spending an hour doing typing. Just writing reports on why you felt justified in having to get your gun out of the holster and pre-staged and ready for a fight. So if these officers are getting in the habit of not pulling their gun out when they should be, then it's setting them up for failure. So, you need to fight these policies. You need to document. So, sending emails, making copies of those emails, certified mail, whatever. You need to make your concerns known to administration that their oppressive, dangerous policies are putting people at risk. And hang on to that. And if something happens, well, then you've got a paper trail to be able to do something with that on. And then you can also try to go with your local politicians, maybe state representatives, etc., and try to get some type of change done that would prohibit agencies from making bullshit policies that are unsafe for officers. But at bare minimum, you should document your concerns to your administration and save those. That way, if something ever happens to you or someone else, you have that documentation that you brought this issue up and you proved or you shown very articulable points about how this was dangerous and it could lead to someone being seriously injured and or killed. Usually when you point things out to people like that, if you make it, if you point it out in a way that, hey, I'm putting this out here in the open for, obviously this is documentation purposes and I'm telling you something because it could end up becoming litmus later on down the road, people tend to think a little bit differently when they know they're being not set up, but when they know that they're on the hook now, and they know that you have this documentation of communication coming to them, pointing things out, and if something happens, someone could be injured. That puts in the back of their mind, well, shit. Now there's a documented occurrence that someone has brought this concern up to me and has voiced concerns that someone could be hurt and or killed. And shit, if something happens, then it can come back on me because I knew about this and didn't change anything. So it actually can make people change their policies on certain things and make them reverse what they say. Now, of course, when you end up doing that stuff, you kind of become the bad guy. No one likes the person who makes enough noise in the place. Everyone wants a mindless fucking robot who just follow orders left and right and never questions anything. Anyway, into that rant. Moving on.
Libbity bibbity.
Cut.
Liberty Mutual
You gotta
customizes your
be
car insurance.
fucking
So you
kidding
only
me.
pay for what you line.
Need.
Wow. Sorry about that. So, it's interesting that, when I post these videos on YouTube, my videos get flagged as inappropriate material, and it's now listed as not for kids, basically. When that happens, you don't get any advertisements on your channel. But if a freaking news channel posts videos of people being shot, well, then they obviously aren't getting those restrictions because they have advertisements showing up on the videos.
Now you want to approach this bus? It's going to be down, about 4 down.
So they have parked down from the residence and will be approaching on foot. This is a standard tactic for law enforcement. It's never a good idea just to pull straight up to the house and then get out. An ambush could be there. It could put you at a severe disadvantage when you pull up straight up to the front of the house and then someone just comes out of nowhere and you don't have any ability to react. Mostly people are not expecting the police to park a distance away from the house and then approach on foot. They're expecting for that car to pull up right out up front, just like a pizza delivery guy, right? People are used to that kind of pattern with services. The vehicle pulls right up to their house. But you should not be doing that in this capacity because it's not safe to do. So they're doing the right thing. They're parking further down the road, and then they're going to be approaching on foot.
You still in contact with the RP? Are they inside safe? Got it. Huh? Yep, I'm charged. It's 282. Right there. Now, this will be the car though. This is a car. Alright, keep an eye out for ambush. Keep an eye on this car, I believe. footprints going around the back? Any footprints going around? Nothing? Okay. Watch that side, please. Shots fired, shots fired. Officer down. Roll EMS. Stay up, boys, units! Pull him out, pull him out!
All right, we'll back this up and see it again.
Okay. Watch that side, please.
So I forgot to say something about this. So you hear him talking on the radio, but you never hear a reply come back. It's because they have earpieces in. It's not the most common thing for a lot of places, but there are some places that it's just I don't want to say it's a culture thing, but it's kind of like I've noticed that if people wear earpieces, then it's either all or none, basically. Some places you may have like one or two people who do it and everyone else doesn't, and then you have other places where damn near everyone does it. And he's obviously got an earpiece in, and that's why you don't hear the dispatcher talking back. That can be nice. That way the suspects don't hear anything from dispatch. They don't hear dispatch saying, yeah, he's got 2 warrants. And then they flip the fuck out. And it's nice for, being all stealthy ninja and hiding in the corners and being able to monitor radio traffic and no one else be able to hear it. That is a nice thing about it. For me personally, the downside to it is maybe it's just my body, but I feel like I produce a lot of earwax. And anytime I've ever tried to use an earpiece, it just ends up getting clogged with earwax. And it rubs my ear canal a little raw feeling. So I've never liked the feeling of it. At least not for long-term use. Short-term use, kind of. I've gotten okay with it, but trying to wear it all day, I personally have never gotten down with it. I just don't really care that much for it. Other people can obviously do it, and it's not that much of a problem for them. Me, I don't care for it, but that's why you don't hear any radio traffic. Now, when this other officer looks around this fence area, he gets shot. This guy, from the camera view, Sergeant Jeremy Sagner, he had mentioned during the trial that when he got up there, he thought the officer was dead. He said he could look down and he could see blood coming from the officer's head, and he just thought the officer had died. Imagine that. Imagine as you're walking, you're going forward, and you hear gunshots, and you see one of your own people go down, and you look down, and they're just bleeding from the head, and you automatically think they're dead. It's one thing to know about someone who's died, and then it's another to that person die right in front of you. Now, obviously, this officer did not die. But in that moment, Sergeant Sagner had thought this guy just died right there in front of him. And he was able to act instantly. The shock of it did not take him over, and the fear did not rob him of his ability to act. he was able to move forward, return fire at the bad guy, communicate, fire some more, and then move in and take control of the guy. That's a warrior. He was cool, calm, collective. And you're about to see the whole thing. He's very cool, calm, and collective after, one, his partner being shot, and in the moment, he's thinking he just got killed. And then, two, he is essentially being shot at as well. And he just fluidly, boom, returns fire, communicates, returns fire some more, and then goes in after that guy. Not every officer's like that. There are some officers out there who would not have performed like this at all. There are some who would have lost their shit and would not been able to be capable of fighting. They would have become the term combat ineffective. Fighting mindset is something that just cannot be 100% taught to someone. Like, you can teach people firearms tactics and self-defense tactics and all this other shit. It has to be a certain type of person that stuff is going to excel with. And in law enforcement, not everyone fits the bill on that. If you've watched enough of these videos, you will see from time to time that some people freak out. They don't handle it well. Some appear to just run away. They may be really great at everything else when it comes to law enforcement. And when you think about it, this stuff don't happen. This stuff doesn't happen all the time. The majority of police get to go their entire career and never have to shoot anyone. I don't know what the numbers are, the percentages or anything like that. But I mean, it's a low percent of the overall law enforcement in this country that actually has to get involved in shootings. So for those officers who just freak out during a shooting, yeah, it sucks that they're like that, and they're not that effective of a fighter, but they've probably excelled at a lot of other things in their career that obviously has never required them to get into shootouts with people. So I'm not saying they're a total loss or a total waste, but when it comes to the fighting stuff, like you got to fight. You just can't tuck tail and run away from it or hide from it. The public doesn't need that. The public needs warriors. And in, the woke liberal left America, when you say police are warriors, they shit their pants and cry, militarized bullshit. But let's be honest. What do you want out of your police when they're fighting criminals? Do you want warriors or do you want a bunch of pansies? I want warriors. And that's what this officer is. He is a warrior. So we're going to watch this and we'll replay it a couple times, and then I'll let it go its full cut or go on past that until the next stopping point.
Shots fired. Officer down. Roll EMS. Stay up, boys! put you down! If you're ready for anything, I will put you down! You... Stay down! Get out! Stop! Shots fired, shots fired. Officer down. Roll EMS. Stay down, boys, your hands! Pull him out, pull him out! Keep your fucking hands up! I will put you down! If you're ready for anything, I will put you down! You... Stay down! Keep your fucking hands up!
Okay, so it's hard to see this officer's rifle any. I don't know if he has a rifle mounted light on there or not. You don't get the best look at it. And when it was in the car, you didn't get the best look at it either. So, I don't know if he has a light on there. And if he does have a light on there, I don't know why it's not on. In low light to no light conditions, you need white light to be able to shoot more effectively. Now, him shooting.
Officer down.
So him shooting. Here's a fence right here. Could he 100% see his target? I don't know. I have not been able to see any type of testimony from this officer or anything like that. So I don't know, what his narrative was, or his statements were in regards to this case. But with a white light on the rifle, that allows you to see your target better. Now, if he had turned on, let's say he had a white light and he turned it on, would that have helped him see a lot better in this instance? No. I think that would have caused a lot of splashback coming off the fence. I think it's plausible that the officer, once he got closer, he could see the suspect moving on the other side because there is a light in the background. There's snow on the ground. So I think the suspect was somewhat silhouetted, and the snow on the ground was, I wouldn't say amplifying the artificial light, but it was bouncing it enough to where I think that this officer was probably able to see through the fence slats and be able to fire. I'm just making that assumption. I don't know for sure. It's also possible that he just started shooting through the fence, basically firing blindly through the fence, hoping that he would hit the aggressor. One of those two is going on. Which one, I don't know. The suspect ends up being shot in the lower back area, and I would suspect that lower back area would be maybe this line of the fence area, most likely. So if he could see his head and he was firing at his head over the fence, I would imagine the rounds probably would have landed a little bit higher. So that was another, I guess that would be a third possibility, is he could see his head over the top of the fence moving and he started shooting at him that way. I wish I could get more information on that, but a lot of times these agencies just don't provide enough information for viewers to be able to go off of. But he fires through the fence and he hits his target. Once he gets to this fence and goes through it, we still don't see any white light coming from his rifle, but we see white light coming from another officer's pistol. Actually, not even their pistol, they just have a flashlight when they come up. So we'll hit play and we'll get to that point.
Stay out of his hands! Pull him out! Pull him out! Keep your fucking hands up! I will put you down! If you're ready for anything, I will put you down! You... Stay down! Keep your fucking hands up! Keep your fucking hands up! Keep your fucking hands up!
So this officer has a weapon-mounted light, and she also has a flashlight off to the side here. I don't know why she's using both of those. I could only imagine that as she was wanting to get closer to the scene, she was using her flashlight to look around so that she wasn't pointing a gun around. But once getting up here and there's a suspect right there that she can point her gun at, that's the time to, for sure, have your weapon-mounted light turned on, and you could put the flashlight away. The flashlight is just a utility light. It can serve as a fighting light, but it only needs to be serving as a fighting light as a backup for when your primary weapon-mounted light goes down. So at this point, she should have just ditched the flashlight and gone straight to weapon-mounted light.
I got the gun, I got the gun!
Do you have any other guns on you?
No, that's the only one.
To me, that's kind of an irrelevant question because he could be lying at this point. He could have a second weapon on him. So I don't really see the point in asking if he has a second weapon on him, because you already know at this point you're going to have to cuff his ass up and do a search, do a pat down. That's the way you're going to be able to find out if he has a gun on him or not asking him if he does.
Hold it.
Don't move.
He's on your fucking stomach!
Here, handcuff me. I'm holstered.
Don't you fucking move!
I'm holstered.
Alright, get him hooked. Get him hooked. Dispatch for Lupton 326. Suspect down in custody. Conscious, breathing, bleeding. Need EMS. Scene's code 4. Emergent, please.
Do I put a search?
Yes, I got him.
Do you have the gun?
I have the gun.
Bro, I'm crazy. I'm sorry.
You just shot an officer, man. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You understand that?
I know.
Stop talking.
I like that. So I think this officer was having some calculated thinking at this point. Because keep in mind that he's thinking that the officer who got shot is dead at this point. Like, he doesn't know that he's alive. So he's thinking from the mindset now that there's a dead cop and here's the suspect, and the suspect's talking. Well, Miranda versus Arizona, if you're going to be questioning people, they need to be Mirandized. Now, obviously, this officer is not questioning this guy in any way, but the person is making sudden remarks, unprovoked sudden remarks. So I think this officer was thinking from the mindset of, well, he hasn't been reminded of his rights yet, even though I'm not questioning him about anything, but an attorney could try to make a motion to suppress the body cam footage if he made incriminating statements without being Mirandized. So this officer, he does the right thing. He reminds him of his right not to self-incriminate. He gives him the Miranda warning. Anything this dude says past that point, he already knows his rights. He's been informed of those rights. There's no way he can fucking argue, or his attorney can argue in any way, shape, or form that he never knew what his rights were. And that means they would not have the ability to have this footage suppressed at his case. And one of those articles that I looked at, the body cam footage was a big part of the case. Now, what if this sergeant did not remind him of his rights? Would this footage have still been used in that case? I'd say that a good possibility it would have. But if the attorney for the Cotter guy was good, there's the possibility that they could have argued that this was in violating his rights, or he was not reminded of his right to remain quiet, and the footage should be suppressed. You'd be surprised about how many little sneaky attorneys end up getting things in favor for their shitbag clients. Law is not always about the right thing. Law is like a weird chess game in a way. There's a bunch of little technicality things and lots of moving pieces. It's not checkers. It is chess. It's a little bit complex, and like I said, you'd be surprised about how many times dirtbag criminals get free on little stuff, just little tiny little technicalities, when they're obviously, fucking wrong. Like Miranda versus Arizona, the whole Mirandizing people. That comes from a case from a guy who raped girls. Ain't no doubt about it. He fucking did it. Ain't no doubt about it that Miranda raped and victimized. But he had a good enough attorney to be able to make a good argument that he should have been reminded of his rights not to self-incriminate. Anyway, moving on.
I shot an officer and I shot you.
Huh?
Here you
I
go.
deserved it. I wish I was dead. Can I get out of the snow?
No, you can't fucking move right now.
I know.
Alright. Bullshit ad coming up.
I didn't think I had time for a master's, but WGU lets me earn an accredited business degree on my own terms.
Alright, so that looks like a little bit of a better view of the rifle here. That could be a light right there at the end. I'm not really sure. If it is, again, I don't know why he didn't turn it on. Could be he forgot about the light is there. It could be that he was able to see enough with his eye, even though we can't really see a whole lot through the camera. Because you got to keep in mind, the camera doesn't capture everything that the officer gets to see, and the human eye has a lot more clarity than a camera does. So he could have seen just well enough without the aid of artificial light, even though we couldn't really see jack shit. It's also possible that the batteries are dead in it. Weapon-mounted lights need to have batteries rotated out of them every so often. It's not something that you can keep in there for a very long period of time and then never change them out. So even when I go to do my rotation and I go take my batteries out of my weapon-mounted light, even when that light shines bright as hell and it's strong, I still replace the batteries. Because there's, incidental moments where the weapon light comes on. And when you think about batteries, you have to think about batteries as like a gun magazine. Every time you click that on button, it's like shooting the gun and a round leaves the magazine. You fired enough and that magazine is going to go empty. So I look at batteries kind of like a magazine in a gun. If I click that light on so many times that I am firing X amount of rounds, so to speak. And I don't want to get down to just 2 rounds and then that's it. I want a topped off mag, so to speak. So I want my batteries topped off. Incidental light discharges could be from actually, using your weapon-mounted light, got it up, moving through a building, click it on, click it off, whatever. Or pulling out of the holster sometimes because I have the DevGru switch on it. When I go pull out of the holster, sometimes I get a negligent light discharge, so to speak. And then there's also sometimes the seatbelt in my car, because I don't always buckle my seatbelt when I drive. Sometimes that seatbelt, depending on how I get in, it can hit on the DevGru switch and leave the light turned on while I'm driving down the road, and I don't know. And that's actually burned my batteries down multiple times before. So you have to keep your batteries rotated in your guns. If you can afford it, and especially if the department provides the batteries, that's even better. Some people say they switch the batteries out every month. Some will do them every couple months, once a quarter. The lithium batteries do have a pretty decent charge in them, and they will last in storage for a pretty good long time, definitely longer than alkaline. So it's not them sitting there for a while that is the reason for them to be switched out. It's when you use the light. Multiple uses, multiple, discharging of the battery, that depletes the battery. And it's not like you have a scorecard attached to your light and you're keeping track of every time you've ever switched that light on and how long it was switched on at these different intervals. So it's really difficult to accurately remember, okay, well, this month I turned my flashlight on 6 different times and each time was 2 minutes long. No one keeps up with that shit. So it can be a good practice to switch them out every 2 months. Unless you're really using your weapon-mounted light a lot, in which case, if you are, then switch them out every month.
my life's over.
Yeah. Shut up.
I like this guy. Shut up.
Any of the Lupton officers on scene, if you can get me a first aid kit, I'm surrendering aid. Where you hit?
In the back, lower back.
So he's getting prepared, putting his gloves on. So I've talked about gloves before, and I'll talk about it now. You should always have gloves on you because you never know when you're going to need them. And anytime you're dealing with a person and their bodily fluids, you have to assume that they have something that you don't want. HIV, AIDS, hepatitis, whatever. When you select your gloves, I do not recommend getting a snug pair of gloves. One, if you are trying to put on a snug pair of gloves under stress, you increase the chances of you ripping that glove while trying to put it on. And if you only got one pair on you and that you rip your only pair, well, you're up creek without a paddle. I recommend having gloves that are about a size bigger than what you would normally wear. And of course, each person's hand is going to be a little bit different. So there could be some people where that's not really applicable because then that makes it too baggy of a glove. But ideally, it's best to go a size above what would fit you when it's snug. So if you put on a pair of mediums and they're snug, well, you need to be wearing a size large. If you put on a size large and they're snug, you need to be wearing a size XL. You get the picture. That way you reduce the chances of the glove ripping when trying to put it on under stress. And then secondly, when you go to take that glove off, it is easier for you to be able to get that glove off when you have blood on your hands. Blood is a lubricant. It is very slippery. And when you are wearing latex or nitrile gloves and your fingers got blood on them and you're trying to grip or pinch the cuff and palm of the glove to try and peel it off, it can be difficult. And if you have a snug fitting glove when you're doing that, then when you pinch and pull, it could slip. And then whatever blood's on there will splash off from that slipping and snapping motion of the rubber once you stretch it out and it goes back to its position. Well, that blood could splatter onto your gear. You get little droplets go up into your mouth and your eyes, whatever. With a looser fitting glove, you reduce those chances of that occurring. If you've never had blood on your gloves before, then you just don't fully understand like how slippery it can be. So what I would recommend to you is put on the gloves that you've got, take some shaving cream, spray some in your hands, rub them together, and then try to take your gloves off. You will find that it's not as easy when there's slippery substance on your fingers. And the shaving cream with the gloves is on par with how slippery blood can be.
We'll put you on your side.
Thank you.
Stay there. Do not move.
I won't. That's my vape. Can I hit it?
No. Do not move. We're good, man. Thank you, though.
So there's a person, I'll back it up so you can see him, over here at this house over here where you see my mouse circling at. There's a person over there. They apparently come out of their back door after hearing a bunch of gunfire. You can see them moving right there.
I'm in shock, bro.
I have an ambulance coming. Do not fucking move.
Thank you. I can't move. I'm in that much shock.
You know, Sarge. Back to the patrol car. He was walking.
Okay.
In the zipper compartment, there's blood clots. I got a tourniquet if you need it. I don't know where you're at.
I haven't checked him where he's hit. I'm assuming in the back.
Where do you hurt?
In the back. Right on the back right there. The lower back. Right above my ass.
Lay on your belly. See it. Lay straight on your belly. That way you don't gush out blood.
This is the wrong thing.
I know. I needed this, though. I can't wait to go to jail. It'll serve me right.
Do you have a knife? Don't move.
I'm really
Don't
cold.
move.
I don't give a shit if you're cold.
Fuck off.
I'm gonna try to save your fucking life, even though No, you know what? Just...
You need to lay down straight.
Lay down.
I'll play that again for you.
I don't...
Don't move.
I'm really
Don't
cold.
move.
I don't give a shit if you're cold.
Fuck off.
I'm gonna try to save your fucking life, even though No.
So yeah, I'm not. I like these guys. They are not of the tree hugging persuasion. I'll say that. Like, yeah, they ain't about being fucking politically correct, and I like that about them.
You know what? Just...
You need to lay down straight.
Lay down. Is the husband cleared?
It was just him. They're inside. They're
I
secured.
promise.
I saw him at the front door.
I need to chest you.
So I'll go into it. So this guy is on the ground, and he's wanting to play the victim bullshit. Obviously, he just shot a police officer, and he's gotten shot, and now he's wanting to whine and fucking complain and try and get some sympathy out of them, and they ain't fucking having it. This one tells him to shut up, and the other one tells him to fuck off. And some people will think that's cruel. They're gonna say that's cruel and unusual. That's not being a good officer. That's Gestapo. When people start going into that little boo-hoo-hoo, I'm a victim bullshit after they've done something very egregious like shoot someone else, if you play into that, if you coddle them and you pander them, they will not stop. They will keep fucking going. One, that shit gets annoying. And then, two, it just opens up the avenue for them to keep making noise, keep talking. And it starts, and if you play into that, well, it's just like, if you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want a glass of milk. So it starts off little, and if they play into it, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it can start to make that person feel like they're in charge in some way. These officers are responding the appropriate way. They're not playing into his bullshit. They're not coddling him, and they're not pandering him. They don't have to. It's not their job to do that. So they shut him down real quick when he starts complaining about something. He tells him to shut up, and the other one tells him to fuck off. Totally appropriate.
This is gonna hurt.
I know.
Do we need a chest
Go
seal?
for it.
I think he was running away when I shot through the fence. So,
Your car's blocking ambulance.
So he mentioned that he was running away when he shot through the fence. So again, what I said earlier, I don't know the full details of how he could see this guy. Of course, you do see this backlight on, and it's very possible that when he was on the other side of the fence, he could see the light from that casting out across the snow and in that area past this corner right here. And that when the suspect was running, he could see him because of this ambient light back here in the back. So if this light is, if that's possible, or if that's what's going on, then if this light was turned off, then there's a possibility this officer may not have been able to see well enough to be able to fire through that fence at him. Fighting at night sucks. Or it can suck, but it can also be really nice, especially if you can own the night. Now, they're using white light in this, and there's almost a little bit too much ambient light to fully get away with using night vision, but it's also plausible that night vision could have been used in this scenario here. That's a whole nother topic in and of itself, going into low light and white light versus night vision. So I'll leave it there.
I should have just
Yeah, that would have been a good idea.
I know.
Sorry, okay?
Just keep breathing, look.
Still sitting up. It's hard.
There's one there. These are. I should have. Gotta get blood soup on the front.
I'm not checking up on.
There's another one here. Put some pressure here. Now we'll throw on our DOS. Full pressure. Roll towards you.
you rolling?
Exits. Let's see. Oh, there's.
Is there a back? People in the back? Could have gotten hit.
Huh? How many shots were fired?
I have no idea. I just kind of unloaded until I heard him go down.
Looks like there may be. Where were you guys at?
We were up front. He shot over the fence.
Okay.
Helton went down. I took
Here.
a bunch of shots coming down. So
So there's a shell casing here.
that's his.
Okay. So just so you know, there's a shell casing there.
Okay.
Where's his gun?
I have it in my back pocket.
So she had mentioned something about, stuff back here. And that it seems to have piqued his interest now to go check in behind this area. And when you think about gunfights, of course, there are going to be misses a lot of times in gunfights. That's just the cold, hard, dirty truth about gunfights. Not every round is going to hit the intended target, although that's what we train for, and it's very well known to everyone that you are accountable for every round that you send out. But let's face it, it's just the nature of the beast. Misses are going to occur. Now, I'm not saying hey, it's okay, misses are going to occur. I'm just pointing out that statistically speaking, it's going to occur. Why do they occur? Mostly training. Can that be fixed? Yeah, if agencies got to have more money for training. A lot of agencies are poor. They cannot afford the training. What would, in my opinion, what would decrease these misses occurring? Repetitive, recurring firearms training and practice on a quarterly basis. And that's just not feasible for a lot of places because it's too expensive to do that. So what I mean by recurring training on a quarterly basis, I mean like once every quarter, an officer goes through a 2-day pistol, 2-day rifle class and fire for each weapon no less than 700 rounds. I don't know if there's any agency that can afford that. But that, in my opinion, would for sure decrease the misses that occur. When you think about police firearms training, when an officer gets hired, they will go through the academy and there will be a block of instruction for firearms. Now, it varies all across the nation, but let's say they get a week of firearms training, and that's to cover their pistol, shotgun, rifle, and backup gun. They're going to get about a week of firearms training, and that's just basic firearms stuff and going into some tactics. So they'll have about a week's worth of time of doing that, and then they'll have several hundred, if not a few thousand rounds to go through. And when they're doing this firearms training, that's all they're doing. They're not doing any other bullshit. Now, they might, of course, wake up in the morning and have to go do PT and other formation bullshit as part of the regimen of the academy. But when it comes to that firearms training, from start of class time to end of class time, that's it. That's what they're doing. And at end of class time, they just go back to their bunk. There is no push for, well, we got to get these guys out of class. We got to get them back out on the road. This other shift's holding over for training, blah, blah, blah. Like, there are no constraints with that. Maybe on Friday when people want to leave early and get their weekend pass and go back home. But at least for sure, Monday through Thursday, like there's nothing pending that would force them to have to end this training early. So they are getting a good block of instruction on these days that they do it. And it's an all-day event. And they get to fire thousands of rounds. If not thousands, then very, very high hundreds. That is probably the best firearms training they're ever going to get in their career. And their agency will probably never be able to replicate that. Because once they get back to their agency is already going to be understaffed. Right now, all agencies are understaffed. I don't think there's any agency right now who's like, oh yeah, we got enough people. We don't have to do any hiring. Like everyone's hurting. So they get back to their agency and now they got to work the road. Well, how are they going to spend a week on firearms training once a year to keep fresh and fire several hundred to low thousand rounds and have every person in the department do that? There's no way that these agencies can do that. Someone has to work the road. And if they start pulling people off the road to go through this annual firearms training, then someone's going to have to be pulled to work overtime to do that. So there's going to be overtime involved for officers covering other officers who are doing this training, whoever's doing the teaching, the ammunition. So, I mean, you think about a department that has 50 people on it, 50 officers, and they each got to fire about 1,000 rounds. that's a lot of ammo. That's a lot of ammo. So officers or agencies cannot replicate the block of instruction and firearms training that their officers get when they go through the academy. They sure as shit can't do it on a yearly basis, and it would be extremely difficult for them to even do it on a 2-year basis. A lot of agencies just do not have the money for that whatsoever. A lot of agencies struggle when it comes to budgets. So what do officers do after the academy? Well, for sure, at bare minimum, they have to qualify once a year. Now, each agency is a little bit different. Some do it once a year, some do it twice, some do 3, some do 4. Really depends on their budget. But qualification is not training. Qualification is just them standing and or kneeling at different distances, shooting X amount of rounds at each distance, and using their dominant hand only, using both hands, and or also using their non-dominant hand within these different distances and firing X amount of rounds. That is just a qualification standard to say, hey, this person was able to stand at 10 yards and fire his gun two-handed into the target and was able to pass. That's it. There is no real training or practice when it comes to that. Aside from that, there can be some in-service training when it comes to rifles and stuff like that and with pistols, but it's not going to be a week-long event. It's going to be like maybe a day or two of training for the whole department to get everyone in on it, and there's going to be a time constraint because the administration is worried about overtime because they've got a budget to watch. They're worried about this overtime. They can't go over on their overtime budget, or they don't want to. And then because of that, most of the time it's officers on shift when they're doing this kind of stuff. So they try to avoid having officers come in on their days off. So they have officers on shift, and sometimes this is done towards the end of shift. And like first shift guys, they might wait until the end of shift for them to go do their firearms training, and then now they're holding over. Now they're having to incur some overtime, etc. And then the next day, first shift will stay over for second shift to be able to come in and do firearms training, and they might be on a constraint like, hey guys, we got to hurry up and get this done. First shift wants to go home, whatever. There's those kind of logistical constraints that end up causing some training to be cut a little short. So what I'm getting at is once an officer graduates from the academy, they're most likely never going to see any good firearms training past that point, unless their agency has some type of special tactics team that they get on, and then they get to go to some additional training, or they become an instructor and they go get some additional training, or they got a really cool chief who will actually allow them to go to some more advanced training. Other than that, if it's not being done by the agency, officers are going to have to pay out of pocket on their own to get more firearms training. And a lot of officers just simply, they won't do that. There's a lot of cops, they're not gun people. There's a lot of cops who the only reason they even have a gun is because their employer gave it to them, and it's a condition of their employment that they carry a gun. Before they became the police, they never had a gun, never shot a gun. They don't give a shit about guns. Probably some of them think that people who carry guns, got small penises. There's probably quite a few officers who fall into that mindset, and they think the guns are totally unnecessary. There's cops who don't even carry off duty. Believe it or not, there are cops who do not carry their guns off duty. And on a day-to-day basis, they arrest people, and they're not ruining people's lives. People ruin their own lives when they engage in criminal behavior and do bad things. But when the police catch them and put them away, or cause them to be put away for a very, very long time, some people get a little butthurt over that. And they want to blame the officer for their mistakes and will hold a grudge against that officer. So I think it's incredibly stupid for officers who don't carry off duty. Like you piss people off. Like, you should be carrying off duty. You never know when some asshole's going to want to take revenge on you. But yeah, anyway, so after a gunfight, because there are misses that occur, you should be checking the area. Check behind what you were shooting at, because there is a chance that there was a miss. And on the reverse side too, where you were at, what's behind you, because that bad guy shooting at you, he probably missed some rounds too. So go check that area back there as well and make sure that there's not someone laying on the ground bleeding to death. I'll back this up. This officer, for whatever reason, doesn't really bend over any. He just kind of does a standing post right here, so to speak. I'm imagining that he's like looking down at the suspect. Wouldn't be surprised if he's got his rifle kind of pointed at him. But he doesn't ever seem to bend down or take any effort into doing anything. He puts his gloves on and stuff, but he never squats down or bends down and does anything. He just lets these other officers take the lead. You see one guy's head will pop up down here, and then there's a woman down here too. You can't see them because he never bends down enough to be able to see them. But we see that this officer here has his flashlight out. Let's see if I'll back this up even more.
You rolling?
Exits. Let's see.
Is there a back? People in the back? They're going here.
Huh? How many shots were fired?
I have no idea. I just...
All right. So you see him, and then the girl over here. And they're having to use their flashlights to look around. So now I'll talk about medical stuff. So they've went and got some type of medical kit, and they brought it back, and they're treating this guy's injuries because you hear them mention something about a chest seal. A piece of equipment that I think is a good piece of equipment to keep in your med gear is a headlamp. That way you can have hands-free ability to treat someone and still have light. So you can get headlamps at a lot of places. You can get some pretty cheap ones. Like, you're not going to break the bank getting some headlamps. LED, of course, is the ones that are recommended. And honestly, I don't even know if anyone even makes headlamps anymore that are not LED. So get a good LED headlamp. And when I say good, I don't mean like go spend $50 for one. Like, you could literally spend probably $5 and get a pretty decent headlamp. But make sure it has pretty good output on there, and load it with lithium batteries. Don't put alkaline batteries in there. Alkaline batteries suck ass. They will lose their charge over time, and sometimes they leak. And once they leak, it fucks shit up, and you'll have to clean the contacts in there with vinegar to try and get some of that battery acid out. And if it goes through the cracks and gets onto the circuit board and the rest of the wires, well, then you can clean that off. You're going to have to disassemble the headlamp and get in there and use the vinegar and stuff to dissolve that battery acid. That's literally a lot of effort for something that costs $5-10. At that point, you would just throw the headlamp away and buy another one. But lithium batteries are the best thing to put into electronics. They're going to be sitting for a while because lithium batteries hold a charge a lot longer. After a 10-year period, a lithium battery, without using it, if you take a lithium battery and it has 100% charge when you first buy it and you don't use it at all, after 10 years, it should be able to still have 70% capacity. That's really good. Alkaline batteries, good luck with that. That'll never happen. And they perform well in cold weather. So alkaline batteries, if you put alkaline batteries in some type of device and you have it sitting there for a while and it's been sitting out in the cold, you will see a sluggish performance out of that electronic when using alkaline batteries. Using lithium batteries, it works a hell of a lot better. So you get good long shelf life on it. They don't leak in the thing, and when they've been sitting in a car and they're cold, they're going to perform good. So put a headlamp in your med kit. That way, when you go to get your med kit out and it's nighttime, you can put that headlamp on, turn it on. You're able to work hands-free, and it's going to be performing well, and it's going to be performing for a good long period of time. It's not like it's only going to be on for a couple minutes and then die. Medical gear is important for everyone. Not just people who carry a gun for a living, but everyone else. But if you carry a gun for a living, whether you are paid to carry that gun or you just make the decision to be an armed citizen and be conscious of your self-defense, if you're going to carry a gun for a living, you need to carry medical gear. If you're going to carry the tools to induce trauma, you need to carry the tools to reduce trauma. If you carry a gun, then there is a possibility that you could be involved in a gunfight or a deadly force encounter. And if you can be involved in that, then you could also be shot yourself or stabbed, or your partner or your loved ones can be shot or stabbed. Ambulances can have a long response time. It can take 8 minutes for an ambulance to get on scene. If you've been shot in the leg and you have a femoral artery bleed, you can bleed out in 90 seconds. 90 seconds you could bleed to death. And it takes an ambulance 8 minutes to get there. You have to have medical gear. When I talk about the ways of having medical gear, there's 3 types of medical gear. One is a boo-boo kit. And this is not for treating traumatic injuries or anything like that. But a boo-boo kit is something that contains like little Band-Aids, some poison ivy cream, or bee sting cream, little cotton balls and a little tongue depressor, maybe a little ice pack, tweezers, like little bullshit stuff that is going to treat a little kid falling off his bicycle and getting a scraped knee. Those Band-Aids are not going to help with bullet holes. So you can't go buy a first aid kit from Walmart or anything like that. It's not going to work for these kind of injuries. And if your car has a first aid kit in it from where your agency has furnished it, then keep in mind that some agencies and some companies will put first aid kits in those vehicles to meet some type of insurance requirement or to meet some type of accreditation requirement. So some police agencies and sheriff's offices that are accredited, there's a group of people who once every so often will come around and they'll inspect different things. A lot of it is administrative stuff. They'll inspect different records and whatnot, but they'll also go inspect some operational stuff. And, one thing they could be looking at is, does your police station have first aid kits? Do your police cars have first aid kits? So in order for these agencies to meet those accreditation guidelines, they'll go out and they'll buy a mass of first aid kits. And they'll put them in all the cars. Well, because these evaluators also look inside the first aid kits to make sure that they're stocked, some agencies will actually put little zip ties on these first aid kits and tell people don't use them. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what the fuck? Especially if you have nothing to do with public safety. Like if you're in public safety, you know what I'm talking about. But anyone else who doesn't, work in the industry, you're probably thinking, what? No, that's a legit thing. So there's no telling how many agencies out there that have first aid kits in the cars, and there's like a little, not a big zip tie, but like a little tiny one that you could easily break if you need to get into it. But there's like a little tiny zip tie on there, or there's tape wrapped around it, and sometimes you'll see, a little message written on tape on there, do not use. Or you might even see the first aid kit in the like plastic wrap packaging that it came in, and someone could have it written on the plastic packaging, do not open this. And then we'll stick it in the vehicle and it will stay there. And the only time it ever gets touched is A, if the officer has to move it around to get it out of the way, or B, one of those evaluators from the accreditation agency comes in and picks it up and looks at it. There's a lot of asinine shit when it comes to the public safety world. But yeah, so boo-boo kits is one form of medical gear, and I do not recommend those as your go-to thing. They just will not treat traumatic injuries. For traumatic injuries, you're going to need stuff like tourniquets, pressure bandages, compressed gauze, hemostatics, things like that. Things that you would see advertised for TCCC, Tactical Combat Casualty Care. There's two ways of having this gear. Number one is first line gear, which is what you carry on you. And then the second is second line gear. It's supplemental gear or standalone gear for everyone else. First line gear is for you, your partners, or your family. No one else. Everyone else gets to have the second line gear, the stuff that's in reserve. The only way that quote-unquote rule, in my opinion, should be broken is if you are 110% sure that there is no more fight to be had. Like there is no possibility that there could be any more fighting going on, and that the scene is 110% safe. And to have a scene 110% safe means that you have no less than a platoon of police officers on scene. Practically your whole damn shift is there. So if someone tries to kill you and you have to use force and they get shot in the leg and you have a tourniquet on you, I recommend that you do not use that tourniquet on them, because you have no idea if someone else is with them. And if you put that tourniquet on them, then that person, while you're sitting there putting on them, their friend could come around the corner and see that you've shot their buddy, and then become pissed off and want to get revenge and start shooting at you. And then if you or someone else gets hit and you have a femoral artery bleed, or you got an arterial bleed coming out of your arm, what are you going to do if that was the only tourniquet that you had? Are you going to take that tourniquet off the bad guy and then put it on yourself? If you had a pressure bandage on someone, are you going to unwrap that damn thing and take that blood-soaked pressure bandage and put it on you? No, like, those are not viable options. So that's why I say the medical gear that you carry on you is for you, your partners, and your family. Everyone else can wait for supplemental gear, the second line gear. And the only way, and like I said, the only way that would ever change is if you know that there's no more fighting that could be had and you've got a lot of backup there. The only time that you would use it, and for me, the only time I would do it when those conditions are not met would be for kids. Like a little kid with an arterial bleed. Yeah, if it's like fresh gunfight, there's a possibility that some more fighting could be had. I would probably take that risk and use my only tourniquet for a little kid. And not just because, they're a little kid, but also because they don't have the same opportunities as you and I. They don't have a job. They don't have a career making enough money to go out and buy this kind of stuff and go get training on this kind of stuff. Other adults, they have these opportunities. They have the same opportunities as I. They could have went and bought a tourniquet. They could have went and taken a class on how to use medical gear. They could have went to YouTube to learn how to use a tourniquet, how to save a person's life, how to provide first aid to someone. But they chose not to. They chose to get involved in other things in life. So they can wait. They're not going to get my stuff. At bare minimum, as far as you carrying medical gear on you, at bare minimum, you can carry just a tourniquet. If that's all you carry, then great. At least you're carrying something, because a lot of people don't carry anything at all. A lot of people have this mindset that, oh, I've got my tourniquet in the car. If I need it, I can go get it. The problem with that mindset is, what if your car gets stolen? There's a lot of cop cars that get stolen. What if your car is set on fire? What if you were pinned down by gunfire and you cannot get to your car? What if you are very far away from your car? There are things that would prevent you from being able to get back to your car and grab medical gear. So that's why I say you have to have it on you. Now, can you carry an entire trauma kit on you? No, that's not feasible. But you can carry some stuff that will improve your odds of surviving if you have traumatic combative injuries. So extreme hemorrhaging has been proven to be one of the leading battlefield killers. Now, this data comes from wartime. And granted, there's probably a lot of that data that is being driven by things like people stepping on landmines, hitting IEDs, and then experiencing a loss of a limb, their leg being blown off, something like that, or big gaping holes being put into them. Obviously, domestic law enforcement, domestic security, domestic life is not like wartime. You typically do not have big ass 100-something millimeter artillery rounds being buried on the ground and blowing people up domestically. You don't have landmines in your downtown area. You don't have hand grenades being thrown at you, typically, or rocket-propelled grenades. So in wartime, a lot of that stuff does account for the data that shows that extreme hemorrhaging is one of the leading causes of battlefield deaths. But some of that is also from gunshot wounds. And domestically, that is a likely source of an injury, a firearm. If you're shot in the leg, there is the risk that, you can have an artery severed. If you're shot in the arm, you can have an artery severed. That would be extreme hemorrhaging. To stop that or diminish that extreme hemorrhaging, you can use a tourniquet. So way back in the day, before 9/11, tourniquets were kind of seen as a last-ditch effort. The mindset or the belief behind it was if you put a tourniquet on, someone could lose their limb. And some people had this belief that only doctors should be putting tourniquets on. Well, we eventually found out that was a bullshit way of thinking. And real-world applications of tourniquets started being utilized after 9/11 during the Afghanistan and Iraq wars. And we found out that tourniquets save lives. So since extreme hemorrhaging or massive bleeding is one of the leading causes of death from battles, a tourniquet would make sense being the only thing that you would carry. If that was, if you're making the decision, you're only going to carry one thing. So if you only want to carry a tourniquet, great. You can carry more. You can carry a compressed or pressure bandage. You can have compressed gauze. You can have a nasopharyngeal airway, chest seals, things like that. And you can have all that stuff and be able to put it into a medical ankle holster. And it doesn't take up a whole lot of room, and it doesn't really print at all. If you carry an ankle gun as a backup gun, you could very well easily carry a medical ankle holster on the opposite ankle. Even if you don't carry an ankle gun, you could still very easily carry a medical ankle holster with some of that stuff in it, and it doesn't print much, if at all. Now, if you're wearing skinny jeans, yeah, that's going to be a different story. But you shouldn't be wearing skinny jeans. If you have cargo pants as a part of your uniform, you can put some medical gear in your cargo pants, and it'll fit in there just fine. If you have an outer carrier vest, and it's not the uniform style one, but it's the kind that it has either fixed pouches on it, or it has the Molly Pals webbing that you can put whatever pouches you want on there, then you can carry medical gear on you. And if you have the webbing on there that you can put whatever pouch you want on there, and your agency or your company doesn't care what pouches you put on there, absolutely you can carry a bunch of medical gear on you at that point. So there's options for carrying medical gear on you. I have a video on medical ankle holsters on my channel. You can go check it out. They're good pieces of kit to have. As far as second line medical gear goes, you can get a trauma kit from many distributors. You can get simply just an IFAK and have that as your second line gear. You can make your own if you have a bunch of extra components or anything like that. Most IFAKs or blowout kits or ventilated operator kits, gunshot kits, whatever, they do vary from manufacturer to manufacturer as far as the contents that come in them, but they're mostly pretty similar to each other. They may vary on what kind of tourniquet they have in there, but they're probably going to have a tourniquet, some compressed gauze, or maybe some hemostatic gauze. They may have, like just a bag of Quick Clot in there. It may have a nasopharyngeal airway, may have a decompression needle, and it may also have chest seals in there. So some kits may have all that stuff. Some kits may only have a few components of that kind of stuff. So it really depends on who you go through when you get this stuff. Typically, they don't come with things like bag valve masks. That's an extra component that you'd have to get separately, and it's something that I would recommend that you add to your second line gear, because it is an important piece of gear. And this gear is not just for bad guys. Like, this gear is for your own people. If one of your partners, one of your loved ones, someone's close to you, goes down, this is the stuff that you're going to be using on them. Or they can end up using it on you. So on top of an IFAK that would contain an items like a tourniquet, pressure bandage, chest seals, nasopharyngeal airway, decompression needle, you should also get a bag valve mask to add into that. And I think you should also get a suction device to add into that as well. The medical gear is only one part. The other part is the training that comes with it. A lot of agencies and companies will, at bare minimum, provide CPR, AED, first aid courses. That stuff is good for CPR and AED only, in my opinion. The first aid stuff, it can be beneficial, but the curriculum that comes from, like American Heart and American Red Cross, it's very, very broad, and it's not very intensive. And it covers a wide range of stuff like diabetic emergencies, anaphylactic shock, hypothermia, hyperthermia, asthma attacks, little stuff like that. And then it also has the quote unquote trauma part of it, and it's a very basic thing of trauma, like how to treat someone who has a little cut on their arm, or how to help someone who has fallen off a ladder and they might have a broken arm. It doesn't go into very traumatic injuries like gunshot wounds, stab wounds, amputations. And the people who are teaching these classes are not always the best people who need to be teaching these classes. So almost anyone can become a CPR, AED, first aid instructor. Practically all you got to do is pay enough money, go through a 2 to 3 day instructor class, and then you can start teaching this stuff. There are people out there who've had no prior experience with medical, who have gone through these classes and now teach these classes. Like, literally, you could have someone who has worked at Walmart for 10 years as a shelf stalker, and that's all they've done since they graduated high school. Just work at Walmart stocking shelves, and they can go take a CPR, AED, first aid instructor class, and after that class, they can now teach people how to perform CPR, AED, and provide first aid with no prior experience whatsoever. That's kind of scary. Now, that is not the best person to have put on a class on how to treat gunshot wounds, because they're not going to be able to expound upon any of the information. A lot of those people just end up being slide readers. Like, they will literally look at the slide, read verbatim all the words on there, click next, read every word on it, click next, and then they can't talk any further on any other topics without any type of material in front of them, because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. When you ask them questions, they don't know how to answer because they don't have any experience to draw from to be able to give you a good answer. So to have someone put on, a good class on how you apply tourniquets and chest seals and all this stuff, you're going to need someone who has some good knowledge and experience in that. And I'm not saying that every CPR, AED, first aid instructor doesn't know what they're talking about. You could have some who do. You could have some who have prior training and experience as an EMT or combat lifesaver from the military, whatever. And that's something you would have to figure out within your agency. Like, hey, has this person got more, legit training? And if not, then you're going to want to find someone who does. And find that person. If you can do it in-house and they can put on a informal class to teach everyone, then great. Of course, if you need a more formal class, obviously, you want to write up your own curriculum and stuff like that, and that can put it on. Most places, the agency having jurisdiction can have their ability to create their own training. Some places they may be a little bit more restrictive on it. It may be a more in-house restrictive thing. They may have this misconception that only a certified law enforcement instructor can teach this class, or they may have that kind of stupid mindset. But get someone who can teach these classes in-house if you can. A lot of agencies have guys who've been in the military, and some of them may have gone through combat lifesaver courses, or who've been there, done that, and they've had to put tourniquets on, and they know what to do. Those would be good sources to train the rest of the guys up on how to do this stuff. Other than that, some ambulance providers may have instructors who teach EMT classes and stuff like that, and they might be able to put on, a one-day class on how to apply tourniquets and chest seals and stuff like that. Air ambulance companies put on classes. They typically put on landing zone classes for like volunteer fire departments and stuff like that. But they can also put on other medical related classes. Sometimes you'll have an air ambulance company that has instructors, and they'll do a like an EMT research blitz kind of thing, where they'll just do like a 3-day class for people who have their EMT license and they need to get their hours built up to be able to recertify every so often. So they'll do that, and then some of them will also do like their own standalone course for like pre-hospital trauma life support, just a more advanced class on dealing with trauma. So they got some of them will have the instructors to be able to teach, and they would probably be more than happy to put on some type of class to teach your people how to do tourniquets and chest seals and stuff like that, and probably do it at no charge, and just want to benefit from the PR for it. I mean, those people will always, do the politician thing and like to take the photos and say they did this for their local community kind of thing. I'm not saying that's bad or anything. I'm just saying, that's more likely. But that's only going to work for police agencies. Security agencies, I highly doubt you're going to have some air ambulance company who would provide a free class for you. So you're going to have to pay out of pocket for stuff. When it comes to paying out of pocket for stuff, you can still go to the local ambulance provider who happens to have instructors who teach EMT classes and see if you can get enrolled in an EMT class. It's not a short thing to do. It could be a few months long, but you do get a good wealth of knowledge from an EMT class. But if you're looking for something, more acute, more short duration, something that just focuses specifically on tourniquets and chest seals and stuff like that, there are some commercial schools that do firearms training and stuff that you can go through, and they have like a 2-day class on doing this kind of stuff. As far as getting that good on training, that's about all you can do. Other than that, if you have someone that works in your company who's been there, done that in the military, they would be a good source to do an informal class on. Other than that, that's really only sources to go for information. You can, of course, go to, and I don't recommend this for standalone training. But it is okay to kind of get an idea of how things work. You can use YouTube to get an idea of how a tourniquet works, but that should never be your standalone training. That should not be the only thing that you do. You need to actually go in person to a class to learn about these things and get some hands-on experience with a training device on actually putting it on yourself and actually putting it on someone else. Because you can watch the video and get a pretty decent idea, but you want to do this stuff hands-on. So yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to cover from this body cam footage. Now, I don't know if any other body cam footage exists from this incident. I can't really tell if they've got cameras on or not. Oops. So it's possible that these, if they do have cameras, that it could be obtained. It's just that no one has asked for it to be obtained. Or it could just be the agency who's responsible for this one just won't release anything else other than this one. I don't know. I would like to see footage from everyone else, but I haven't found it yet. So this concludes the body cam footage from the incident itself. Now I'm going to go play the body camera footage from his interrogation after this incident.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. You said earlier, I met you this morning, a couple hours ago, Matthew. And is it Matt? Do you prefer Matthew or Matt? Matt, okay. And I'll refer to you as Matt from this point on. So, Matt, the first thing I want to do is, do you remember me from a couple hours ago? Okay, I'll reintroduce myself. My name is John Kinney from Greeley Police Department. I'm also a detective assigned to the 19th Judicial Critical Incident Response Team. Now, when I was here a couple hours ago, I think it was about 6:40 a.m., you said that you wanted to answer questions I had, but you wanted an attorney present. And since I left at around 6:40 this morning, I received a text message that said that you had approached the officers and said you do want to make a statement to me. Is that correct? And you want to do that without an attorney present?
Yes.
Okay, and what was I know that there's been a change of heart. Did anyone coerce you, threaten you, intimidate you, or tell you have to give a statement to me?
Domino Masters has unbelievable excitement.
Sorry about the bullshit
And
advertisement.
epic chain reaction.
Okay, and did you approach the officers and tell them you wanted to talk to me? Is that correct?
I had the nurse do it, yes.
You asked the nurse to do it?
Yeah, I can't.
Okay, what did that, and you just said you wanted to talk to the officers or something to that extent, that regarding?
Someone was sitting out the window, so I had the nurse grab him.
Okay. Okay, so no one is for it. No one told you have to do this or anything like that.
Just me.
What's that?
Just me.
Just you? Okay, so Matthew, what I want to do then is to, like I told you earlier today, I would like to ask. I have questions about this incident, and I want to ask you. One of the other parts of this is because I'm back. Is I need to advise you of your rights. Okay, and because of your condition, do you read and write the English language? Okay. What I'm going to do, I think what I'll do is I'm going to move over to the other side of the bed. This is a little different. I'm used to doing this like in interview rooms and stuff like that. I'm going to move to the other side of the bed and I can read you your rights, and I'll let you read along if you'd like. You feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, I just can't write.
Okay.
Because I'm
Okay.
not writing.
That's fine. Okay, Matthew. You see that form okay?
Yeah.
That from right there is okay? So I'm going to read it to you. I want you to know that I'm not insulting your intelligence or anything like that. I read this to everyone I interview, okay? that's in custody. So you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him present with you while you are being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you before any questioning if you wish. Do you understand each of the rights I've explained to you?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you're not able to write?
I can sign it.
Okay, you can sign it? Okay. Let me get my... I'll hold the backside. If you want to answer yes there, or you can just do a Y maybe. Okay, and then if you want to try to sign, I'll hold the backside again.
Not bad.
Okay, not bad for left-handed. Having these rights in mind, do you wish to talk to me now?
I don't have to answer for everything, right?
No. I'm going to walk back to the other side. I'm going to sit on the side of the table because it's easier for me to use this to write, but...
All right, so this officer does a pretty good job of documenting what has transpired before this interview has taken place, and has done a good job of being able to articulate for the documentation purposes that he's not been coerced in any way. No one's forcing him to do this, and he's recounting the story on how this has come about, when the first time he said he did not want to talk to police at all. And of course, he's got very good, clear documentation of not only him reading this document out loud, but even having him reading it himself. And before he does that, he gets him to admit that he does have the ability to speak and read the English language. And of course, he documents the document saying that he understands his rights. This is an important aspect. So, obviously, if you're in law enforcement, you already know this. And anyone else who's not been in law enforcement, you may have heard Miranda rights being said before in the movies, and this is just like anything else when it comes to non-law enforcement people talking about things within law enforcement. They always draw upon what they know, and what they know comes from movies or TV shows. There are a lot of people who incorrectly believe that Miranda rights have to be said at any time an officer is with someone. There are people who think that once an officer puts handcuffs on someone, they have to read them their rights, and that's not the case. That does not have to happen. The only time officers read Miranda rights to people is if they have them in custody and they are asking them questions about the crimes they have committed. People have the fifth constitutional right not to self-incriminate, so they don't have to answer any questions whatsoever. Since he is detained, he's in a hospital. Even though he's in a hospital, he is still under arrest by the police. I would imagine that there's probably a deputy sitting outside his room or sitting in his room the entire time he's in this hospital, and he's probably got his legs cuffed to the hospital bed. That is a pretty common practice, is to bring a pair of shackles, put one shackle on one ankle and put the other on the bed frame itself. So he's under arrest at this point. He's in custody of the police, even though he's in a hospital. And this detective is going to be asking him questions about this crime that he's been involved in. So he is very meticulous about reading the Miranda rights and everything, because if you detain a person and you ask them questions and they confess to things and you have not reminded them of their Miranda rights, all that stuff can be thrown out in court. It can be suppressed. Someone like Ted Bundy could conceivably walk free if the police mess this part up. It'd be the fruits of the poisonous tree.
I also wanted you to know that the device that I have right here is a body-worn camera. Okay, so it records everything for me. So, I want to start with a couple things, just some information about you. What is your date of birth?
September 14th of 2000.
Okay, and a phone number for you. Okay.
You know,
and is that a cell phone?
I find it funny when agencies redact certain information because in reality, some of the information that they're redacting or censoring no longer exists. Like, does anyone legitimately believe that this dude's cell phone is still active since 2019 and it's now 2022? No, that number's been purged. Like, you don't have that phone number anymore. There's also, like other cases, like apartments or something like that, where a person was murdered at or something like that, and they obviously no longer live there. Some agencies will, depending on their policies or state laws or whatever, they will censor things inside the house, like TVs and other valuables. So they'll block out most of the interior shots and give the excuse that they're doing this so that other people in the community can't see what kind of valuable items are inside the house. Well, that's laughable because the person who is living in an apartment who got murdered is obviously no longer going to be living there anymore, and all that stuff is going to be gone. Or old cases that are several years old and the people have died and they have obviously moved on, they will still redact and censor that stuff. Each state, when it comes to their open records laws, they're mostly the same, but some vary a little bit. And when agencies release stuff to the public, certain things have to be redacted. And obviously, like Social Security numbers and everything, those are going to be redacted. But there's other stuff that ends up getting redacted that really, when you think about it, it's kind of a waste of time to go through the whole process of editing that part out, because what's the odds of him still having that phone number? And if he still has that phone number, it's not like he's going to be fucking answering it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no idea what happened to it, but...
Okay. And a home address.
Same thing with home address. He don't have a home anymore. Well, he does, but the address that he gave, he don't live there anymore. He is now a resident of the Weld County Jail, and soon to be the resident of whatever prison they ship his ass off to. So what's it matter if they blur out his address at this point?
East 160th Avenue place?
No, it's definitely just place.
Oh, it's the 60th place.
Yeah, so 160th Avenue turns into
Okay.
160th place.
And what city is that?
That's Brighton. 80603.
80603. Is that on? Humor me. Is that out by the new Judicial Center? Out east by I-76?
It's farther.
Farther east from there? Okay. I only asked because I grew up in Brighton, but I left there a long, long time ago. So I know Brighton well enough. So, okay. So Matt, I have a lot of questions, but in your words, can you tell me what happened tonight?
Last night,
Yeah.
went crazy. Good person, we did a bad thing.
Okay. So you said you went crazy?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I feel like myself.
Okay. So you didn't feel like yourself?
I mean, should I tell you how the night happened, or
What's that?
should I tell you how the night happened?
Yeah.
I was headed home after work, and I just started driving. I just started going east.
I'm sorry?
I was going home after work, and instead of making the turn to go to work, go home, I just kept driving. I just kept going east.
Okay.
I don't know, I probably got like 200 miles from Brighton.
So you drove about 200 miles?
Yeah, I drove a long ways.
Okay. What time did you get off of work?
6 o'clock.
Okay. And at what point, you said you just kept driving east. Do you remember what road you were on?
No, I remember I was trying to get to I-70 though,
Okay.
so I could keep going.
Okay. So at what time did you stop and turn around?
That's been like 8, probably 8.
Around 8?
Maybe even earlier. Maybe before 8. I don't know.
So roughly 8 o'clock, approximately?
My phone will tell you when I turn around.
Okay. Your phone will tell you?
Yeah.
You have a GPS on your phone?
Well, I got a phone call
Okay.
from my ex-girlfriend when I turned around.
So, you said someone, that phone call is when you turned around?
Yeah,
Who called you?
my ex-girlfriend.
Who's that?
Her name is
Doors unlocked.
Okay. So she called you?
Yeah, I called my best friends first, and I was angry, screaming.
Okay.
Like, I wanted to get away. I didn't want to hurt anybody. So I knew if I kept driving,
Okay.
it would eventually pass over. But I heard her voice, and I wanted the closure.
So when you heard her voice, that trigger, you want a closure, and you turned around.
I just wanted it to be better.
I'm sorry?
I just wanted it to be all better. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
When you said you passed your house, or the turnoff to your house, and you said you were going east, and you were just driving, and you said, earlier on you said you went crazy and you didn't feel like yourself. Why were you driving east? Was there a reason for that?
It's because driving is my passion.
It's your passion?
Yeah, I
Okay.
absolutely love cars, and I know that that's an easy way for me to get away.
Okay. Were you, and I know you said that you were driving and you didn't want to hurt anyone. And did you have a plan? Was there some type of plan by driving? Were you driving east because it's your passion and it lowers your stress levels, or were you driving east because you want to hurt yourself, or something different?
It lowers my stress levels. If I want to
Okay.
If I want to hurt myself, I don't know, probably a couple weeks back, and the first time I thought about killing myself, I put the gun to my head
Okay.
in my basement. And instead of driving east, I drove west. I drove to Boulder, and that was a couple weeks before.
Okay.
And that's when I found out that driving could stop whatever I felt like.
Okay.
And it's because I never felt like people could talk to me and understand
Okay.
me.
So it's a stress release, and just a way to get away and just kind of calm yourself. Okay. So, and let me ask you, when you were driving east, and I know you said you were feeling calm and everything, did you have a gun then?
Yeah. But I don't know, I don't think about the gun, you know. I always grew up with it.
Okay.
It's just something.
Do you keep it in your, like, do you keep the gun with you at all times, or in the car, or?
No, I think a couple weeks ago I went hunting, just threw the gun in, forgot to take it out, you know.
I'm sorry, what's that?
I'll go like hunting or shooting or whatever. It's just something I enjoy to do, you know, just go out and hunt, go to Colorado Plays. Like safety with a gun is my number one thing.
Okay.
I don't know how I let that get away from me.
Okay. Okay. So you had the gun with you when you went on the drive. Just so, did you intentionally put the gun in the car with you, or was it just there?
It was just there, and then I can't remember when I remembered it was there. I didn't plan on using it.
Okay.
I didn't want to use it. I don't want to go out and hurt somebody. I hate hurting people.
Okay. So you talked to your friend. You said your best friend first, right? Who's that?
His name's
Okay. And what did you tell anything?
It's all a blur what I was saying, to be honest. It's just, when it
Okay.
comes out as just pure anger, and I can't remember it.
Okay.
And I don't know, I like black out
Okay.
when I start talking.
Okay. And so you talked to him. After you talked to, did you continue in the eastbound travels?
Yeah,
Okay. And then you heard from your ex.
I heard from another buddy.
Who?
I heard from my other best friend.
Who's that?
That would be
Okay. Okay, so you heard from same type of conversation with him?
same thing. I just black out, don't know what I'm saying, and
Okay.
get angry.
Okay. Now, so you heard from anyone else before you heard from your ex?
I mean, at that point, I was tired of people trying to help me, so I kind of threw the phone down until I would call me. So I don't know, there could be a lot of people that call me.
Okay. And so you threw it down and you didn't answer until your ex called you.
I didn't even answer the first time she called me.
Okay.
I had to wait till I could calm down just
Okay.
a tiny bit to get to where I wanted
Okay.
to be mentally.
You needed to calm down, you said?
Yeah.
Okay. So you calmed down and then you answered the second call?
I don't know how many times she called me,
Okay.
to be honest with you. There's probably 10 times she called me before I finally answered.
Okay.
And I answered. I felt calm. I just wanted to talk and work things out. And she said she was willing to do that, so as long as I turned around. So I turned around and I started heading back towards Brighton.
How long has she been your ex?
Probably
3 months? Okay.
I think she broke up with me shortly after my birthday.
I'm sorry, can you say that when she broke up with you what?
Shortly after my birthday, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Okay. So you guys haven't been, so she's been your ex for 3 months, but obviously you care about her. She turned around and you wanted some closure. Okay. Has that kind of been part of what you've been struggling with a little bit?
I'm struggling with it. I've been struggling with loss my entire life.
When you see blue lights, shut up, don't blow, don't do the test. Choose to refuse.
See it tattooed on my arm.
What's that?
See it tattooed. I even put a lost loved one on my arm. Tattooed there.
A lost loved one? Who did you lose?
I lost my dad when I was 8 years old to brain
Oh.
cancer.
Wow. I'm sorry for that. So you've just been struggling with a bunch of these things then. Okay. Have you seen anyone?
I went to a therapist a couple weeks ago. Really wanted to go again, to be honest with you.
Who was the therapist that you saw?
I don't know the name, but I can tell you the name of the place.
Okay, where was that?
It was, I know I can think of it. It's not coming to mind right now.
Where is the therapist located?
Brighton, off Egbert, and I don't know the cross street, to be honest.
So off of Egbert?
Yeah, off of Egbert. You know where the Salute Hospital is in Brighton?
Uh-huh.
It's just up the street. It's about east of there, just like a couple blocks down.
Okay. So, okay. And you said that you don't remember, you just can't recall her name right offhand.
Yeah, I can't recall her.
But you did say her, so I'm assuming it was a female therapist.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Great. So, and that was a couple weeks, just one session?
Yeah, it was just one session. I had another one set up for the 10th of December. 10th I was supposed to go back, and it's because she was busy and couldn't get me in.
Okay. Fair enough. And when you saw her the first time, and just because you said you've been struggling and those types of things, were you prescribed any medications, or have you been taking any medications?
No, this is when I went and saw her the first time.
I'm sorry, what's that?
No, this is when I went and saw her the first time, and I don't know, things started to make sense.
It makes sense, okay. So no medication?
No medication.
Did you take any medication at all yesterday?
No, but I drank alcohol yesterday.
Yesterday. So, alcohol. What kind of alcohol?
Gin.
Huh?
Gin.
Gin?
Yeah.
Okay. How much do you think you drank? Okay. Like a bottle worth, or?
Not a full bottle's right now.
Okay. Is the bottle that you were drinking, is it in your car, or is it?
It's in my car.
Okay. Okay. What brand?
Bombay.
Okay. And drinking it while you're driving out east and driving back?
Yeah.
Okay. So, obviously you came back. What happened? What happened did you go right to I should say?
I did, and I was waiting outside for a second, thinking about actually going and talking to her, or just giving up and going home right there. And I saw pull up in his truck, and I got scared.
Okay.
And I tore out of there. And I drove to like Frederick area. I waited for probably about like 20 minutes just to collect my thoughts.
And what?
I waited for about 20 minutes just to collect my thoughts. And then I pulled up and then I left and drove back down cul-de-sac of Ponderosa. And I was waiting there. texted her. I believe I texted her or I called her. And she said something about me harassing her, even though I wasn't really harassing her. And it hurt. And I just sat there and I was gonna go home. And that's when I heard the sirens coming.
So she said something about hurting her, huh?
Yeah, she said I was harassing her.
Okay, harassing her. Sorry about that. Glad I clarified. But then that statement to you felt hurtful? Is that what you said? That it hurt?
I mean,
Huh?
Yeah, it hurt, but I didn't want to do anything about it. At that point, I just kind of sat there and was just thinking, and maybe I was going to go home. Maybe I was going to try and...
One day installation, because life happens every minute. Bath Fitter, it just fits.
text her to try and get her to actually talk to me. But at that point, I didn't want to hurt anybody. I just put everything away. And I was ready to just sit down and be a good person that I know I am.
Okay. So you didn't want to hurt anyone. Let me ask you, when you're sitting in the car at that point, and I know you said that you're trying to figure out if you want to text her, call her, those types of things, you said you didn't want to hurt anyone. You said you're sitting in your car?
Yeah.
In the cul-de-sac where she lives?
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you said and no one else is in the car with you?
Yep, just me.
Just you? Okay. I know you said you had the gun in the car. Where was the gun at that point?
It was in the glove box.
Okay. Okay. So what happens next?
I heard the sirens. And I panicked. And I got out and ran.
So you panicked and you ran? Okay.
I grabbed the gun for some reason. I tucked it into my waistband. I don't remember why I tucked it into my waistband.
Okay, so you grabbed the gun for some reason. You don't know why? From the glove box?
Yeah. I grabbed it. I instantly racked around into it and shoved it in my waistband, safety on. And I was just gonna start running. I was just gonna start running as fast and as far as I could, but I didn't for some reason. I stayed.
Okay. So you said you were gonna run as far as you could?
Yeah. I was gonna start running across the golf course that was there. I was gonna hop the back fence, start running across the golf course, but I didn't. And I turned around and sat down next to the house.
So did you start running? Did you actually run?
I was going to for a second, but I turned around and sat down.
How far away from your car when you turned around and sat down?
Not terribly far. I don't know if my car is still parked in the same place over there or not.
What's that?
I don't know if my car is still parked in the same place over there or not.
Okay. So wasn't that far that you...
It is not too
Okay, and you said you sat down next to a house?
Yeah, I sat down next to her house.
Oh, next to her house?
And right behind the gate, I opened the back gate because I was going to run out to the golf course.
Okay.
And then I turned around as I got out into the backyard a little bit. And I just sat down next to the gate, just scared. I was crying. I didn't know what to do.
Okay. And what about the sirens? Did they show up there?
I heard them. I just kept hearing them and hearing them and hearing them. Eventually, I think it was three police officers pulled up. I don't know how many.
Okay. So 3 police officers showed up?
Yes.
When you said 3 police officers showed up, how do you know they were police officers?
I could see their uniforms.
Okay. Did they get out of the? Did you see them get out of their police cars or anything like that?
No, but I could see the lights shining around. The red and blues.
Okay. So you said you saw their uniforms.
I saw their
And you could see their lights.
their flashlights looking around.
Okay.
Pretty sure they were holding the ARs.
They were holding AR-15s?
Yeah, I think that's what I got shot with, to be
Okay.
honest.
So you said they were holding AR-15s. Were you still sitting, like, were you still by the gate, by the house?
Yeah, I stayed by the gate.
What's that?
Yeah, I stayed by the gate.
Okay. Did they see you?
I don't think they saw me.
Okay.
I don't think they ever saw me.
Okay.
But the gate was a little bit cracked.
Okay.
One of them kind of started walking back towards me. And I knew I had that gun on me.
Okay.
And I just freaked out at that point. Lost control. Lost it all.
Okay. So you said one was walking back by you?
He started walking.
And you said you knew you had the gun.
I knew I had the gun. I knew I was drunk. I was trespassing.
You said you knew you were drunk?
Yeah, I was drunk.
Okay. And trespassing. Okay. So what happened then?
That's when I blacked out. And the next thing I knew, I was on the ground with an officer's boot in the back of my head. And I was getting put in handcuffs.
Okay. So, up until this point, he has described how he has been watching these officers when they get on scene. Being watched is something that I don't think a lot of people think about. When you think about animals in the wild, like watching National Geographic, and you see the lions and the gazelles, or any other animal, whatever, any other predator. There's a process that these predatory animals go through. It all begins with observing. They are watching. And when I say predators, they're ambush predators. That's how they do, like an alligator, or crocodile. They'll sit there and they watch and they wait for their prey to get closer. And then they strike and use surprise and violence of action to their advantage to overcome their prey. Muggers, robbers, that same process is going on. They're observing their prey. They're looking around. They're looking for prey. They find someone who's suitable. They stalk them. If they can wait for them to come to them, they'll wait for them to come towards them. If not, they'll go towards them. But they'll stalk. They'll move slow and not draw any attention to themselves, and then they'll pounce. They'll attack when the prey is not knowing of them being there. And this is why you often hear people say, "Oh, they just came out of nowhere." Well, in a lot of instances, if you just pay attention to your surroundings, you'll see those predators because they're watching. And most people, who are not looking for crimes of opportunity, they're doing simple stuff like playing with their phone or talking to someone or eating. although there are some people who like to people watch and will watch people, there's that, but there's not that many of them. So when you're looking around and you see someone watching you, that's a pretty good clear indication that that person's a predator, and they're sizing you up and seeing what kind of prey you're going to be. Now, in this context, these officers are searching around, and obviously they can't see him because he is in a concealed position. He is behind a fence, and it's difficult for them to even be able to see him. Even when looking right at him, at that fence, that might be difficult for them to even see that he's behind it. So, the ambush predator stuff is still at work here, and it's not like the officers were just completely oblivious to their surroundings or anything like that. They were situationally aware. The Sergeant Sagner guy, he was mindful of the fact that, you know, they could be walking into an ambush. They had rifles. They were prepared, but they just unfortunately couldn't see through the fucking fence. They don't have night vision, or I'm sorry, they don't have X-ray vision. They can't see through stuff. So this is how he got the advantage on them. And being watched, like I said, I don't think a lot of people think about that. They don't think about how they're going to be attacked and how the start of it begins with being watched. This is also of importance when it comes to low light, especially when you're using white light. If it's dark out and you don't know where the threat's at, then every time you turn that white light on, you are broadcasting your position to that threat, and that threat gets to know exactly where you are, where you're looking, and what you can and cannot see. As long as that light's moving around and searching around, they know that you don't see them. Now, of course, that light's pointing right at them and they're yelling, then yeah, they're going to know right then and there that you see them. But they get to know your position, where you're at, and what you can't see. And they can maximize that to their advantage. They can capitalize on that. So, when you're out looking for someone, chances are they already know you're there. They've been looking at you when you got there. And they're tracking your every move. You are the one who is being hunted. Although you're doing the hunting, you're looking, you're being hunted too. And someone's already got the drop on you. So think about that. Think about that, how you employ your white light, how you move, and how you navigate through an area. How can you use the surroundings to your advantage? The other thing he said, I just blacked out. I hate that shit. All these motherfuckers who do something awful. It's like they share the same damn story. Oh, I blacked out and I just woke up. This is a common response out of people who've done something seriously wrong and they don't want to admit guilt to it. It is like their way of being able to get out of it and say, oh no, I didn't do this. I'm not really this monster that you think I am. I blacked out. I was not in full conscious control of what was going on. The little devil that sits on my shoulder took over. It's bullshit. He did not fucking black out. He remembers everything he did. He just don't want to admit to it.
So I want to go back just a little bit. So you said that one of the officers started walking up towards you? And you don't believe he saw you because of the way the gate was? Or do you believe he saw you?
I don't think he saw me because they said, I think I remember hearing them say the gate was cracked a little bit. Like, but I was right behind the gate.
Okay. Then what happened after that when you heard him say that?
Blacked out, and then it was boop in the back of my head. I was getting put in handcuffs. Kind of vaguely remember getting shot.
I'm sorry, what?
I vaguely remember what it felt like to get shot, and I thought, I don't know, when I got shot, it was, I remember the feeling, it was awesome. I don't know why I liked it.
You liked it, the feeling? You remember being shot?
I remember being shot. I remember turning around. I started, I don't know why, I turned around and I stood up and turned around. I just remember hearing a gunshot, and then I kept running, and I felt really warm and really good. I just dropped to my knees and fell into the snow. And then all the officers came up and surrounded me, put me in handcuffs.
Okay.
I remember one of them was putting the boot into the back of my head, keeping me down. But at that point, I was willing to cooperate.
Okay. So you said, I want to go back a little bit about what you said about you remember being shot. You heard the gunshot. Okay.
I remember just...
You said you're feeling warm?
I remember I stood up.
I'm Ellie Lowe, and I'm the creator of the Connect deck. Sendle being so easy to use, it had
shot, but it felt good. I don't know why it felt good. And then I hit the ground, and they came back and started to try and save me by putting pressure on it. And that's when I stopped liking it, because I started to go into shock.
Okay. Okay.
I ended up here.
Okay. Do you remember at what point you shot the officer?
I don't remember where he was when I shot him.
Do you remember squeezing the trigger?
I don't even remember the feeling.
What's that?
I don't even remember the feeling of like squeezing the trigger. I knew I had the gun in my hand, but I don't remember pulling it up and squeezing the trigger. I remember getting shot vividly though.
So you don't remember shooting?
Until like vaguely, I don't remember if I shot. I remember pulling the gun up, blanking, and I don't know, there was a lot of gunfire at that moment, because I was getting shot. I had shot the officer.
Okay. Do you know how many times you fired?
I believe 3. It may have been more though.
What's that?
I believe 3. It may have been more though. I shot until I saw him drop.
You shot until what?
I shot and he dropped, and then they shot and I dropped. I don't know. I don't know why I did that. I absolutely love and respect the police. I could have very easily just had a conversation conversation and maybe walked out with a ticket.
I'm sorry?
I could have just had a conversation and probably walked out with a few tickets and charges, but I don't know what got to my head. I had to break everything that I learned all my life.
Did they ever I know you said you saw them in their uniforms, so you knew you were dealing with the police because you said you saw their lights and you saw their uniforms, but you said that at that time you didn't think that they had seen you. Okay, did you ever hear anyone identify themselves as police or anything to that other than what you saw? Okay, so what you're saying is that when you shot the officer, which is ultimately what happened, I mean, we know that, okay, that you caught him off guard.
I believe I caught that officer.
What's that?
I believe I caught him off guard, yes.
Okay. And after you fired, you said there was a bunch of, you said you fired, he dropped, they fired, you dropped. Did you remember anyone giving any commands or anything yelling at you after you had fired?
Just remember, put your fucking hands up, and I had my hands up. I gave up at that point.
Okay.
I was gonna cooperate, but I cooperated in this.
Okay. And at that point you had been shot already? Okay. So one of the things I guess I know you said you stood up. I know that you said at some point you stood up, and then was it after you stood up that you shot the officer, or was it?
I think I might have been sitting down when I shot the officer. I think I shot him through the gate, and maybe that's why my hand's so fucked up, because I was literally inches from the gate. I was sitting right next to it, and I could see through the cracks. And they say this is all from shrapnel. So either when the officers shot me, it fucked up my hands.
Okay. So you could see through the cracks in the fence when you shot him? Okay. And then after that is you stood up, and then that's when you were shot?
Stood up, I turned around, and that's when I was shot.
What's your favorite scary movie?
I don't remember what I did when I stood up.
How far did you start running at all?
I ran probably maybe 2 yards.
How far?
Maybe 2 yards. If that.
Okay. And when you were running, did you ever point the gun back at where the gate was, or towards the officer's direction?
Once I turned around, the gun wasn't anywhere in the officer's direction, but I don't remember if I stood up. I may have stood up and looked over the fence with the gun first, and then turned around.
So you said you got up and you started running, and at some point you turned around, but you didn't feel like the gun was pointed in their direction?
When I stood up first, I may have, I'm not sure, I think I looked over the gate, and I remember them yelling that somebody got shot, and that somebody was down. And when I heard that, my heart dropped, and I turned around and started running, and I wanted to go drop the gun. I dropped the gun and got shot. But I don't feel like they could see whether or not I had that gun, so I feel like they were justified to shoot me.
Okay. So you're saying you dropped the gun and then you were shot?
Yeah, but I think they were justified in shooting me even though I dropped the gun first.
Because you're saying that they weren't able to see where you were?
Yeah, because I fully turned around and I wasn't facing them at all. But it was a handgun, so
okay.
it was very easy to conceal.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned around, I think I had the gun like right here in front of me. And I stood up, I kind of like peered over the fence with the gun in my hand. And then I turned around and I started to run and I got shot 3 times in the back.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. What you just said is that after you shot the officer, that you stood up and kind of looked over the fence. And I think you said you heard something about someone who'd been hit or something like that, that you kind of looked over the fence and you turned around and started running. And at that point, when you ran, you saw the gun in your hand. And you were then, did you hear any commands? And did the officers yell any commands at that point to you as you're running?
They didn't yell any commands, they just shot me.
Okay, so you said 3 times you were shot.
Shot
and then
3 times in the back.
What's that?
Shot 3 times
okay.
in the back.
And then they surrendered, like you said, I remember you said there was a boot to your head, and they were telling you.
To my back, my head, but there was a boot on me, somebody pushed down on me.
Okay, okay, so, and then after they came around you or whatever, surrounded you, or the boot in the back of the head and that type of stuff, you said you complied?
Yeah, I was compliant right after I had been shot. Right after I dropped the ground, I didn't want to fight anymore.
Okay.
I became compliant.
Okay. Do you remember, I think you said something about drop the gun. You remember anyone telling you to drop the gun?
I didn't hear anybody tell me to. I think they told me it after I'd already dropped it and after it was gone because they couldn't see me at that point.
When you were running, did you still have the gun with you?
I dropped it in the process of running. I turned around, started running, dropped it. Boom, boom, boom. And I dropped too.
So you dropped the gun as you were running.
I remember the first command they said was, put your hands up. So that's the first thing I did. I put my hands up because I didn't want to get shot anymore.
Okay.
I already got shot. And then they came over, rolled me over, put me in handcuffs, and started working on me.
So the put your hands up part you just said, were you on the ground when they told you to do that? Okay.
For our patients, for our communities, for each other, you can count on us to show up.
chapstick right there.
I bet I can. There you go.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm just going to look through my notes real quick, man. Thanks. Is there anything else that you remember that we haven't discussed? Okay, I want to walk through and make sure I understand just some of the, I want to make sure I'm not putting any words in your mouth, and make sure I kind of understand the events as you've told me. And I'm going to summarize, and if I'm wrong at any point, I want you to say no, that you understand this wrong, and we can go through stuff. And I understand that there was the driving, and you drove out east. You ended up, because of the phone call you received from your ex, you turned around for some closure, and ultimately you end up in the cul-de-sac where she lives. And you get a text from her, or a phone call about harassing and everything else. You hear the sirens, and then at some point you sat there and you ultimately end up in the backyard of at a house next to the gate. Is that correct? And while you're in that backyard, you know that there's police officers there, because you heard the sirens, you saw their lights, and you saw 3 officers in uniform. And you said that when one of them kind of got close to the gate or whatever, you could see them through the cracks in the fence, and you shot the officer. And after you shot the officer, you heard someone, you heard them, the officers, what you're probably assuming is that someone had been shot or hit. And you looked over the fence, and that's when you started to run. You get shot 3 times. But as you're running, before you were shot is when you dropped the gun, but then you drop, and then the officers, you said there was a boot in the back of your head or your neck, and you were compliant, and you were taken into custody. And when you were on the ground is when they told you to put your hands up or out. While you're on the ground, which you did, and you complied. Okay. Is that all? Is that the events as you remember them? Do I have a good understanding of what you remember?
Sounds pretty much exactly like how the night went.
Customize and save with Liberty Mutual.
Nobody likes floppy things. We the People holsters have created a hard, sturdy belt to keep everything you need safe.
Alright, so that was the end of that.
Backyard, you know that there's police officers there, because you heard the sirens, and you were taken into custody, and when you were on the ground is implied. Okay. Events as you remember them? Do I have a good understanding of what you remember?
Sounds pretty much exactly like how the night went.
Alright. So,
do I have a good...
It's not often that you will see full interviews like this where the bad guys give basically a confession. A lot of them will lawyer up and they won't say anything, especially the ones who've been involved in the system over and over and over. It doesn't seem like to me he's been involved in the system over and over and over. He's not a thug, gangbanger. So that tells me he doesn't understand the concept of remain silent. The other ones, they understand that concept, and they will remain silent, and they won't talk until the DPA comes and represents them. Now, as far as, trying to get plea deals and stuff like that, some of them will start to admit to some stuff, but right off the bat, nope, they're making denials all along. So it's interesting to be able to see interviews like this where they explain what all was going on their end. And learn, certain aspects that you could take away to become better at what you do. But then it's also just interesting to just, listen to some of their reasoning. Now, some of their reasoning and, them talking about what they're doing and their experiences and stuff, you have to consider that, like I said earlier, when he said he blacked out, they will say that stuff to basically save face, to not look like the monster that they are. And so, he first says he blacked out, he didn't remember anything, but when the officer kept pressing and digging into it, this dude obviously remembers a lot more than what he first initially said. And I am confident that he vividly recalls in his head the moment that he decided to shoot this cop in the face. But he doesn't want to come straight out and say it, because he knows that will be, or he believes that will for sure be the nail in his coffin. And while he's talking now, he's talking about having mental health issues, being depressed and all that stuff, and how he's drunk and he just wasn't thinking right. So he's trying to paint this picture that, I was just, I wasn't in the right headspace, like blah blah blah. And then he pulls out the whole, I feel like the officers were justified in shooting me even though I didn't have a gun, trying to add in there, hey, I'll help you all out, you help me out, kind of bullshit. No, they were completely justified in shooting your ass in the back, even if you didn't have a gun in your hand. The officer that he shot, that officer was shot in the face. It went into his jaw. He ended up having some surgeries, being out of work for a while, and he survived. He lived through this ordeal. He now has some type of implant that they had to put in. I don't know what the implant is. I imagine it's probably something to keep his jaw together, because they said it shattered his jaw. Or it could be, something so that he can have dental implants put in. Because I imagine he's probably lost some teeth from this. But the officer survived. He's doing good. The officer who shot him, to my knowledge, he's still employed there. And I think that he actually ended up getting involved in another shooting. And 2021 is when I found an article that was published. So this article was published in 2021, and it's in regards to an incident that happened in April, I think, of 2021. It was another officer and him that had gotten involved in some type of shooting, and he was cleared, but the other officer was acting a little odd and wasn't able to be cleared in that shooting. But anyway, this officer who ended up doing the shooting, He was cleared. Nothing. Obviously, he did nothing wrong. And to my knowledge, he's still with the agency. So going into him talking about him turning and running away, and then you hear in the audio from the body camera footage, the officer said that he was running and he shot. Is there anything with shooting people when they're having their backs to you and they're running? Nope. No problems with that whatsoever. For all that officer knew, the suspect was trying to go to cover, to hide behind, to be protected against officers' rounds so that he could return more fire against the officers. Or he could have been going to break into this apartment, bust down the door, and kill the people in it, or take people hostage. The minute he shot a cop, and it doesn't have to be a cop, the minute he shot anyone or shot at anyone, he now becomes a violent felon. And when he flees the scene as a violent felon, it can be articulated that he is a danger to the public. And officers, to stop these dangerous fleeing felons, can utilize force to stop them. They can utilize deadly physical force to stop them. So there's nothing wrong when a bad guy shoots at people or shoots people and then they turn their back and start to move away and get shot in the back. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. For some reason, there are some people who think that is wrong. It's some immoral act, like it's an end of the world kind of thing. Oh, you shot him in the back. Yeah, and he shot someone in the face. Who gives a fuck? Fuck him. I wish I had a better understanding of some of these people and how they come to these conclusions and these thoughts that are in their head. Like, what is it that has gone on in their life? What experiences have they been through that makes them so fucking stupid? Like, what makes them so fucked up in the head? I don't know. Not much else to report on or talk about on this video. So, at time of recording, it is March 15th, and he is not due to be sentenced until May something. So, if you're watching this before May 2022, keep an eye out for the news in that area. I'm interested to see how long of a time he gets. I'm interested to see if the court system there is going to succeed or fail in delivering justice. Of course, if it's, you're watching this and it's after May 2022, do a Google search and or a other internet search engine search and look it up. See how long he got after shooting this officer. You may or may not be surprised to find out how much time he gets. If you like what you hear and see, go ahead and give me a like and a share. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more Monday quarterback videos. Earl Henderson, Primordial Defense. Thank you for watching.